Hi everyone, this is Nicola at the Puppy Nanny, just doing a live video to chat with you about some common puppy problems that you might be having, specific lockdown related stuff and non-lockdown related stuff, just general puppy stuff as well. I've had to move rooms because yesterday when I was doing some videoing, it's lovely having the sun, but the sun kept coming round and right into my eye, so I've come into a different room now. So hopefully you can still hear me and see me. I don't know whether the quality is going to be as good. Hello, hi. Don't know whether the quality is going to be as good in this room, but hopefully it will be. So yesterday we talked about socialisation. And I'm aware that I was kind of talking at you a lot yesterday. It was quite intense, wasn't it? And it's just because there's so much to cover in terms of socialisation. There's so many different subjects to talk about. It's hi Rachel. So much to cover with your socialisation. So sorry if I kind of went on a bit yesterday, but as I say, lots to cover. And so today's going to be a little bit shorter and hopefully a little bit less intense for you, a bit less to pick up on. So today we're going to be talking about biting and chewing and teething and mouthing and basically anything really to do with our puppies' teeth. So when we first get our puppies, when they're tiny little newborn baby puppies, their teeth, hello Helen, hi, their teeth are like little needles. They're really, really sharp teeth. And what they will have been doing before you pick them up, they will have been with their mums and their litter mates playing and learning what we call bite inhibition. So they're learning how hard or not they can bite their mum and they can bite their other litter mates and get away with it. And that's why they're so sharp, because obviously a dog's coat is covered in fur, it's skin and then fur as well. So if the teeth weren't sharp, they wouldn't be able to feel it. So they have to be sharp to kind of get through to that coat underneath the fur. And often what will happen is the mums will be quite tolerant of any mouthing to start off with, but then as they get older, she gets stricter and stricter. So she'll kind of gradually teach them not to do biting. It won't be kind of a, right, one day you can bite, tomorrow you can't bite anymore. It'll be a bit more of a gradual thing. And what she'll do, hi Debbie, what she'll do is she'll do things like getting up and walking away from them if they're biting. If they get older, she might end up resorting to a little bit of a growl or kind of like pushing them away with her nose as well. So they're the sorts of things that she might do. With the litter mates, when your puppy's playing with the litter mates, they're going to be doing lots of mouthing play. So their mouths are going to be open a lot of the time. They're going to be kind of mouthing at each other constantly. And if they mouth one of their litter mates too hard, what will happen is that litter mate will make a noise, like a little yelp or something like that, to tell them that that's too hard, they don't like it, and then they'll probably then walk away. Or if they stop, they might continue playing with them, but if they do the mouthing again, the game will end. So their litter mates and the mum are pretty much teaching them that biting isn't good. Biting gets attention taken away, it gets play taken away, it doesn't go anywhere for them. And so what we've got to do when we pick up our puppies is we've got to sort of continue that training and kind of replicate what the litter mates and what the mum have been doing. We've got to try and do that, but it's tricky for us because we've not got teeth and mouths in the same way that dogs have, so we can't replicate it in the same way by growling or baring our teeth or anything like that. Some books actually recommend doing a yelp, so like a high-pitched yelp like a litter mate might do. And I know a few people that this has worked with, but with the majority of people, if we make a yelp sound, because it's not the same as a puppy's yelp sound, our puppies just think, oh, that's a brilliant noise, you just made a really good squeaky noise, I'll bite you again, so you make that noise again. So generally I don't tend to recommend yelping if they're biting at us. So obviously, as soon as they come, they're going to be biting us as much as they were doing with their litter mates. We're their new family. They're going to replicate the things that they were doing with their previous family, with their new family, and that includes biting us. So they'll be biting at skin, arms, legs, they will be biting at hair, they might hang on to your clothes as well. Anything that can go in their mouth will go in their mouth. And it's not personal, it's not that they're kind of particularly biting at you, it's just that everything goes in their mouths at this stage. So as soon as you get them down on the floor, every leaf and every stick will go in their mouth. When you're in the house, every bit of something on the floor is going to go in their mouths. That's how they're exploring the world. So it's just a natural behaviour for them to do the same thing with us. So when they're very tiny, what I would recommend is just straight away swapping them for something else. So as soon as their mouth goes around your arm or onto your trouser legs or whatever it is that they shouldn't be mouthing on, you're going to give them something else to chew on instead. So you're going to need a really good supply of appropriate chew toys. And some puppies prefer like a softer chew toy, like a teddy or something soft like that, or a ropey type toy. Some puppies preferred something hard to chew on. And a good way of kind of figuring that out is see what sort of things they're wanting to go and chew. So if they're going for your clothes, they might want something soft. If they're going for table and chair legs, they probably want something hard. So good chews that tend to work well for kind of hard teething are things like Nyla bones, antler chews and the yak chews as well, because they're all really good and hard. But you need to make sure that you've got something pretty much sort of in your pocket at all times when you've got a young puppy, so that if they do latch onto your jeans or your trainers as you're walking along, you can quickly get that out of your pocket and put it in their mouth and make that really interesting. It's not just put it in their mouths and then walk away. It's making that toy interesting and engaging them with it and making it fun, so that they realise that they don't get to play if they put their mouths on your clothes and your legs, but they get to play if they put their mouths on these toys instead. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. You're going to make sure that you've always got something on you that you can swap them for. The other thing that you need to do is make sure that there's plenty of things that they can chew on. So when you've got a new puppy, you're not going to have a nice tidy house. You're going to have puppy things everywhere and you're going to have toys everywhere. And you want to have toys everywhere so that if they kind of look around and think, oh, I could really do with a good chew on something, the first thing that they see is a chew toy that they are okay to chew on, rather than it being, again, like your slipper or your trainer or something like that that's on the floor. So there needs to be things everywhere so that really you're giving them every opportunity to chew something that they should be chewing, rather than not having anything else. So the only things that there are there for them to chew are like the corners of skirting boards. So yeah, make sure there's plenty of things that are out for them that they can chew instead. And if they do go to chew things that they should be chewing, make sure you make a big fuss of them, reward them, praise them, get them out and play with them with the chew toys as well. So it's you're really practicing it with them. They're getting used to it. They're going to get good at it the more that we practice it. So that's what I would recommend for really, really teeny puppies when they very first come. If that doesn't work, then I would go to kind of removal of attention. So there's no point really saying no or stop it to them, because they don't know what no or stop it means. They don't speak English, so there's no point trying to speak English to them. One of the clearest things that we can do to tell them that biting and mouthing doesn't get a response is to take our attention away from them. So if they're kind of on your trouser leg, unhooking their teeth and then walking away from them, or if they're sat on your lap and they get mouthy, putting them down on the floor. If you're having a cuddle and they get mouthy, getting up and walking away from them. So as soon as their teeth come into contact with your clothes or with your skin, you need to make sure that you're taking all of your attention away from them. So just kind of getting up and walking away, because we've given them plenty of things that they can be chewing. We've given them lots of appropriate things to chew. They've got things they can chew all the time. We've offered them a swap, so if they do genuinely need to chew something, they've got something. So if they're turning their nose up at your swap, if we're offering them like a yak chew and they're saying, no, actually I'd rather chew on your clothes instead, we've offered them a different alternative. It's not like we're depriving them from the need to chew. We've offered them an alternative, but they've chosen not to take that. And the clearest way for us to say it's not okay for you to be chewing on my trousers or on my hands is to take our attention away from them and end any kind of games that we were playing. So in the same way, if you're playing tuggy with them or fetch or anything like that, what can sometimes happen is they kind of move their way they start at the toy and then they move their way up from the toy onto your hand. So what you do is you just drop the toy and then walk away from them. So again, you're not engaging in a game with them if they're going to be doing that kind of behaviour. And that's all I would do. I would just consistently do that when they're tiny. If they get intense as they get a little bit older, what you might need to do and what can be really helpful is having a baby gate just somewhere in the house, dividing 2 rooms, say the kitchen, the living room or something, so that if they are being really silly and you're walking away from them, they're still chasing you and trying to chew onto your trousers, you can step over the baby gate into another room just so that you can physically remove them. And that's going to be better than you walking away from them and being on the other side of a baby gate is going to be better than you putting them in a crate for a timeout or anything like that. And also it's going to be better than just shutting the door on them, because they can still see you, they still know they're with you. Shutting the door on them, especially when they're tiny, is really, really like a bit too strong when they've only been with you for a few weeks and they're still settling in. So you don't really want to be doing that. Using a baby gate is a good sort of compromise. And then you can walk away and then you can go back to them. And if they start doing the mouthing again, then you can repeat the exercise again. So offer them something else. If that doesn't work, walk away from them. And if that doesn't work, separate yourself and then come back in again. So because we're consistently going to be following this little routine, what will happen is they will learn that, okay, well, if I start mouthing, you offer me another toy, but actually I don't want another toy, so I'm going to go and chew your legs. And then if you then go into a different room on the other side of a baby gate, they're going to remember that the thing that got you to go into another room was them chewing on your legs, and they don't want you to go in another room. They want you to be with them. You know, they're sociable. They want to be with their family. So it's just an easier way of that's the equivalent of saying no, basically. Our saying no to them is just taking our attention away from them and walking away from them. What can sometimes happen is any mouthing, it starts off as I say, is a kind of a really natural behaviour, kind of that they just, everything goes in their mouths. And then when they get to about 16 weeks, they can start teething then. So they're not actually teething at all when they're tiny. They're just starting to mouth on things. When they start teething, sometimes you notice that there's a bit of a change in the way they chew. It might be a bit more determined. Or they're trying to get things kind of right at the back to reach the teeth at the back. So as I say, that can happen anytime from around sort of 16 weeks. By the time they're 6 months old, most puppies will have a full set of adult teeth through by then. So by the time they're 6 months old, you're kind of through the other side of this teething and this mouthing, and they shouldn't really be doing it anymore. Sometimes their teeth will carry on moving around in their mouths just as they're growing. So they will still need to chew, and a lot of dogs, if they've got issues with anxiety and stress, chewing is a really good natural stress reliever for them anyway. So it's nice for them to have access to chews all the time. But by the time they're 6 months, you shouldn't be seeing anywhere near as much of the biting and the chewing as you are doing whilst they're under the age of 6 months. So just be aware of that you've got that kind of time frame. I think what happens a lot of the time is they're really, really bitey when you first pick them up, and then it starts to get a bit better. And then you think, oh, we're getting on top of this. This technique is working. And then they get to 16 weeks and then it gets really, really bad again. And that's when people think, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And it's just important that at that 16-week stage, you just go back to what you were doing before. Just go back to that, trying to offer a swap, walking away from them, stepping into a different room, because they already know that. They know that's what happens, and you just kind of reminding them again. You just say, do you remember when we did this before? And when we did it, if you started doing that, I went into a different room. Well, the same rule still applies. You just kind of refreshing their memory about that. So that's kind of the way it should go. That's how it should go if it's plain sailing. Some puppies are more mouthy than others. Some breeds are more mouthy than others. So when you research your breed, it's well worth seeing how mouthy they are. Some dogs are bred to have softer bites, and some dogs are bred to have harder bites as well. So that's all going to impact on what they're like when they're being mouthy with you. And some won't really do it at all, but they're all very different. They're all going to do it to some extent, and you've kind of just got to get through it. Problems happen if it turns from like mouthing to an attention-seeking behaviour. And this normally happens if we don't respond in the right way, that when they're doing the mouthing and the chewing. So if say a puppy's jumping up and they're kind of hanging on to your, you know, your sleeve like that, you've got a couple of different options. So what I'm suggesting is you get something, you get a chew and you put that in their mouths and you kind of guide them away with that chew and then play with them down there. If instead of doing that, you're pulling your arm away like that and you're going, stop it, no, will you get off, stop it, like that. You're playing tuggy with them. They're just having a game of tuggy with the sleeve of your jumper, and they're just going to think that's amazing. They're going to think that's great fun. So even though, as far as we're concerned, we're saying, no, stop it, get off, you're not allowed to do that. What are you doing? Will you get off? Will you stop it, please? To them, we're just making a load of noise, which is great fun, and we're moving our arm around as well, which is great fun as well. So this is a toy and is just a brilliant, brilliant game for them. If we do that, if we respond like that, they're going to deliberately do it so that you play that game again, where you go, no, get off, stop it. So they're going to think, brilliant, we're going to play that game again. They're going to deliberately come over to you and grab hold of your clothes or other people's clothes, you know, dressing gown cords, things like that, and they're going to deliberately do it so that you initiate that game. So that's why it's really important to stay very calm and try not to say anything, try not to make too big a fuss when they are doing it. And I know it hurts, I know it really, really hurts, and it's hard not to react. Sometimes the best thing to do is kind of open their mouths. If they're really not letting go, if you've offered them a swap, they're really, really not letting go, open their mouths and actually kind of hold their mouths open to get the clothes out. Obviously, that's only a last resort if the other techniques aren't working. But obviously, if they're holding on and it's really, really hurting, you may physically need to do that to get them off, because obviously we don't want anyone getting hurt. You are going to be covered in scratches. So you're going to have scratches all over your hands, all over your arms. I remember when Joey was a puppy, I had scratches all over my chest as well. And I had marks on my arms, which were from his mouth. And then the ones on my chest were from his claws, because they don't just have sharp teeth, they have really sharp claws as well. So I think he'd been sat on my lap and he'd kind of done that. And so I was just covered with all of these scratches and bruises. So you will end up like that. You've just got to be extra careful with older family members and younger family members like children, because they've got their skin is much thinner, so they're going to bleed more easily, basically. So you're just going to be, you need to be a bit more careful, especially with families with young children. I normally recommend getting them to wear something like some jeans, because they're going to offer a bit of a layer of protection if the puppy's around. Don't wear anything kind of floaty or hanging, no skirts, no kind of loose flowy trousers or anything like that. It needs to be like leggings and jeans and something tough that either you don't mind getting holes in or that are going to be fairly chew proof. And then the same with your tops. You don't want to be like these, really. They're asking for trouble, aren't they? Anything with sort of dangly bits, pom-poms, ties, like your dressing gown tie, anything like that as well. I would put that away until they're 6 months old and then get it out again then, because you're going to spend your whole life playing tug of war with them with it. The other thing that can also be helpful, again, with little ones, is getting them a pair of indoor wellies. So if, say, when they've got their pyjamas on in the evening, or they've got their jeans on and they've got bare feet with socks on, puppies are going to try and pull socks off and chew their feet. If they've got wellies on, that's just really going to protect their feet, especially if they're nice and high up to the knee, because the puppy can chew on that welly as much as it likes and it's not going to get through, and also it's not going to hurt the child either. So I think often with children, it's all very well saying to them, you mustn't make a noise and you mustn't run around and, you know, you mustn't scream and things like that, because that's going to make it even more exciting for the puppy. But kids aren't necessarily going to follow those instructions. They're going to find that really difficult. If something hurts, they're going to yelp. So instead of saying that to them, the best thing that we can do really is either prevent them from kind of interacting with the puppy without you there to supervise, which really you should be doing anyway. You should always be there to supervise any interactions between your puppy and your children, but also by making sure they're dressed so that if the puppy does start hanging off the wellies, they can just walk away and ignore it. You know, they don't really need to react when that's happening. So even though, like, the weather's lovely and we don't need our wellies at the moment, indoor wellies can be quite helpful in that sort of setting. Chewing of things around the house, I would deal in a really similar way. So if they're chewing like table legs, skirting board corners, they're a common one, chair legs, things like that underneath of sofas. It's the same sort of principle really, because if we make a big fuss out of it and say no or stop it or anything like that, they're getting the attention. They're going to do it deliberately so they get that attention. So it's not the same as this tuggy game, but we're saying things to them and we're talking to them, which they think is great. Whereas if we just try and distract them and swap them with something else, that can be helpful, because they've got something else to chew instead. You can get things to put on furniture, so you can get, there's bitter apple spray. Some people use, they'll use like Tabasco or Marmite or lemon juice or something like that, and they'll put it on the area where the puppy normally chews. And for some puppies that will stop them, because obviously it doesn't taste very nice. For some puppies it won't, because they like the taste of it, especially with the bitter apple spray. That can go down quite well. That's quite popular sometimes. So it's a bit of trial and error. You can try putting something on there to see if it discourages them. It's worth a try, isn't it? The other thing that's really going to help with biting and chewing as well is using your crate. So we talked about crate training, didn't we, the other day, and getting them comfortable and happy and settled in the crate. Obviously, if they're in the crate, the only things that they're going to be able to chew in there are the things that you're giving to them. So you want to make sure that you're leaving safe chews, that you know they can't get any big bits off, they're not a choking hazard or a risk or anything like that. They're a nice safe chew that you can leave in there with them. And then that way, when they want to chew something, they've got something that they can chew. And it means that if you are out and about or you're doing something and you can't supervise them, you can't be watching them, you can pop them in the crate. You know that they're not going to chew anything then, which is much better than leaving them with the run of a room and coming back to find that they've been destroying the skirting board or destroying the chair legs, because you can't really do anything about it then. You know, it's already done, it's happened. So there's nothing we can do about it apart from learn from it and try and prevent it from happening again. So that's kind of chewing, teething, that's kind of your typical teething routine, biting, and sort of mouthing behaviours. One thing I would say is it's always worse when they're overtired. So they're always going to be the kind of the unwanted behaviours, like biting and kind of jumping up and running around and being giddy and things like that. They're always worse when they're tired. So you often see a peak of these behaviours in the evening, normally around sort of time when you're either cooking tea, eating tea, when you're doing bath time with the kids, that sort of thing, because they've had a long day, they're getting to the point where they're ready to settle down for the night. But in the same way that kids can sometimes fight sleep, our puppies will do the same thing. Our puppies will fight sleep as well. And instead of thinking, right, I'm tired, I'm going to take myself off to my bed or my crate for a sleep, they'll start getting really silly and start doing mouthy behaviours and jumping up and chewing and things like that. So if you notice that happens, that in the evenings your puppies are getting worse at that behaviour, there's a couple of things I would do. One is I would look at what sleep they're getting during the day. So it might be that they need to have longer naps during the day so that they're better rested in the evening. Or it might just be that you're keeping them up too late and they need to go to bed early. I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago and they didn't go to bed till about 11 o'clock. So their puppy wasn't going to bed till 11 o'clock. But from about 8 o'clock onwards, it was being an absolute nightmare because it was shattered and it was just staying up far too late. So in the same way that our little kids go to bed nice and early, we want our little puppies going to bed nice and early as well. So try and make sure they're getting plenty of sleep. And then the other thing is, if you know there's a particular time when they are going to be more likely to do it, like when you're eating, or again when you know doing homework with kids or something like that, rather than wait for it to happen and then deal with it, I would try and think, right, I know this is the time when they're going to start getting bitey. I'm busy doing something else, so I can't be dealing with it right now. Give them something else to keep them busy instead. So potentially you could pop them in their crate with a chew. You could have a mat on the floor with them with a filled Kong, so that's something that they can get stuck into and eat. So you, rather than waiting for it to happen, you're preempting it. You're thinking, aha, I know that they're going to start being silly at around this time. I know they're going to start being bitey, and it's a tricky time of day because I'm busy. So rather than waiting for it to happen, I'm just going to give them something else to do instead. So that's another good reason, because this is typically in the evening times. It's another good reason to give them their tea in a frozen Kong or a stuffed Kong or something, because they can have their tea and it keeps them busy at the same time. Same thing in the morning as well. If you're getting breakfast ready, you're trying to get kids ready for school. So if that's a time when you're busy and you can't be focusing on them and training them not to bite, then that would be another good time for an activity with the meal, like we talked about the other day. Another way of giving them something nice to do while keeping them busy at the same time, so that they're not thinking, I'm bored, this is what I'm going to do instead. And so long as they're busy with other things and they've got plenty of things to go in their mouths, they'll be much less likely to think about chewing your table legs and your chair legs, or jumping up and grabbing hold of your jeans and things like that. Okay, so I think that's everything normally that we talk about. So I'm just, if anyone's got any questions, if you just want to put those on, and I'm just reading one. So what time is a good time for a puppy to go to bed and sleep through? Mine is going to bed at 10:11 and waking at 6:37. He's 11 weeks. If he's sleeping through at 11 weeks, I would say that's brilliant. He probably needs an evening nap. So what we used to do with Joey, I think he used to go to bed at sort of around 7, 8 o'clock-ish, but then we'd wake him up. Yeah, exactly, definitely. Yeah, so if you put them to bed too early and they've not had the opportunity to go to the toilet, they're going to wake up, 3 or 4 in the morning. So I think what we did with Joey when he was a puppy, we'd put him to bed at sort of 7-ish, but then we'd wake up at like 1 or 2 in the morning to let him out to the toilet, and then again in the morning. But once he got a little bit older, so once he was probably 11 or 12 weeks, what we used to do is we'd still put him to bed at that 7 or 8 o'clock, but then at about 11 we'd wake him up and take him out for a wee then. So we'd literally he's fast asleep, scoop him up, take him out, make sure he'd done a wee, and then pop him back to bed again. So if he's going to bed earlier, you might need to put in a last minute sort of toilet break in there. It's different for different people, isn't it? Because obviously if you've been out at work all day and you're not getting back to your puppy till sort of 5 or 6, that evening's your time with the puppy, isn't it then? So you're not going to want them to go to bed too early then. With this puppy I'm talking about that I went to see the other week, the owners were at home with him all day. So he was with them doing things all day long, and then they were keeping him up. We've been busy doing agility in the garden today. Oh, good. It's a nice day for it as well, isn't it? Right. Okay, what I need you to do, Kelsey, is take some photos of your agility setup, and then you can share them in the group for us, or even a video. So yeah, a few people have said they've been doing the garden agility. It's great fun, isn't it? So if you've been doing your garden agility, sorry, my grandma's just trying to ring me, of course. If you've been doing your garden agility, maybe take some photos or do some videos of it and then post them in the group so we can see what you've improvised, because I think everyone's going to have slightly different things for their garden agility, aren't they? We've all got different equipment that we're making the most of. So last night when we did our training classes, we did our first remote training classes last night. So I was set up in the kitchen with my it was my phone filming, and Joey, and then I was teaching everyone what to do, and then they were watching the video, and then I could watch what they were doing as well. So it worked really well. But for weaving, I was just using 2 chairs. I had 2 chairs in the kitchen. Oh, excellent. So I had 2 chairs in the kitchen, so we were just doing weaves around the chairs. So it can, it can be anything really, can't it? It doesn't have to be your specific equipment. So I'm glad everyone's enjoying that. I think if the weather turns, we're going to struggle a bit more, aren't we? I think when the weather's nice, it's easy to get out in the garden and do things with them. Whereas if it starts raining, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. I've not been out yet for my once a day walk. I'm saving it. So I'm going to go after this because it's cooled down a little bit. And what I was finding yesterday and the day before when I went for a walk, we were going sort of lunchtime-ish, and even though it wasn't that warm, because Joey's black and because he's nearly 15, it was too hot for him and he was panting away. So I thought I'd leave it till this evening, and then we're going to go for a walk, and we're going to try and get down to one of the reservoirs so we can have a little bit of a swim as well, and we can have a bit of fresh air. I just hope everyone else hasn't done the same thing as well, otherwise we're going to be diving into bushes to try and avoid people, aren't we, to make sure that we're keeping our 2 metres. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do another one tomorrow. I'm going to talk a little bit about not jumping up tomorrow and teaching sit. So I like to teach sit as a greeting instead of jumping up. So that's what I'm going to chat to you about tomorrow. So it'll be a similar sort of time, 4 or 5-ish tomorrow. We'll do the same thing. So just before I go, does anyone have any more questions? I'll just hang on a second. One of the things I did mean to say as well is I'm going to post a link to the website in the group as well, because there's loads of help sheets on there as well. So I know I'm putting help sheets in the group. I'm a little bit behind. I've got a couple that I still need to do, which I'm going to get done over the weekend. So in the meantime, if you're waiting and you need some resources, there's loads of stuff on the website. So I'm going to copy and paste the links to the website there. And there's an opportunity there to sign up to the mailing list as well. So if you sign up to the mailing list, I do emails a couple of times a week with this sort of thing on, not videos necessarily, but tips and things on there. Okay, no one's asking me any questions, so I'm assuming that was all really straightforward with the biting and the mouthing. I think one of the nice things, which obviously you're going to miss out on, one of the nice things about puppy class is that first week where everyone's like, oh my God, my puppy's so bitey. And then everyone goes, yes, so is mine. And then you all feel a bit like, okay, it's not just my puppy. Everyone's, is it normal for you? Normal for you to go crazy at times? Yes, and I bet that's in the evening. So I was saying before about them getting overtired. If they go wild, they're probably overtired and they probably need more naps in the day or to go to bed a little bit earlier at night because they get overtired really easily. Yes, like they're possessed. So we used to call it Tucky Bum Run because it looks like their back half is trying to go faster than their front half. And Joey used to do a circuit around the living room on and off the sofa, and he used to bounce on the sofa, off the sofa, on the sofa, off the sofa. And if that happened, we either used to open the door and just let him go outside and do it. Yes, it's in the evening. I bet he's overtired. I bet he's not getting enough sleep during the day. So you need to be quite strict about making sure that he's getting plenty of sleep. They do grow out of it, and every now and then they'll still do it in a bit of excitement. But they do generally tend to grow out of it. But they seem like they've got no control over it. And then when they stop, they kind of look at you as if to say, my God, what just happened? You know, I don't know what just happened. I had no control over that behaviour at all. And it's quite funny. Biting everything. Yes. Yeah, biting, jumping up, chewing, jumping on and off things, all that sort of stuff. They go a bit crazy. And I think they almost need to be told to settle down, like put them in their crate with a chew or go out of the room so that you can't kind of leave them to get it out of their system. But yeah, it's very, very normal behaviour, Okay, so what I'm going to say is if anyone thinks of anything else that they want me to talk about, I'm just kind of going through things as they come to me. So as I say, we'll talk about jumping up and why we don't want them jumping up tomorrow. Frankie tends to get really mouthy with Brandon more than anyone else. It'll probably be how Brandon's responding, Helen, because obviously Brandon's younger. So he'll probably be responding differently to how everyone else is responding. So I would closely watch what he's doing and see if there's something there that maybe Frankie thinks is good fun. I suspect that Frankie thinks it's more fun to do it with Brandon because of whatever he's doing in response. So yeah, if there's anything that you think of, just post in the group. I'm going to be around over the weekend. I'm going to try and catch up so that I've got all your handouts together this weekend. And I am going to be putting together some online puppy courses as well, which I will tell you about at the start of next week, which I'm excited about. So hopefully I will catch you tomorrow, and I'm going to go out and make the most of the fact that it's still sunny for my once a day exercise. All right, nice to see you all, everyone. Bye.